there is a massive difference between time and energy.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me a long, long time to figure this out. You know, I would say, oh, we just spent an hour together.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is, if you're on your phone, you're texting, responding to emails, or you're on your laptop, or you're just watching a show and you're not really there, that hour of time can mean nothing to the other person because they didn't feel your presence and your connection. On the flip side, 15 minutes of present, focused energy where you were really with the person, really intently listening, asking, following up, really there with them, can go day. I mean, it can last for days. You can really feel connected to someone for a long period of time if you just put in that real focused energy. And
health, fitness, mindset, nutrition. Live better and longer. I'm Saad Alam, and let's hone in. What are the other frameworks that you apply when you're going through different transitions?
I did something called the energy calendar that I think is like probably the most powerful overall technique that I've used that I think anyone can apply to their life. So the energy calendar idea is that you, at the end of every single day for a week, you look at your calendar and you color code things according to whether it created energy, was neutral, or drained energy. So anything that created energy, you mark as green, and you literally change the color in your calendar. Anything that was neutral, leave as yellow, and then anything that drained your energy, you turn to red. At the end of a week, you look at this calendar that basically gives you a really good sense of the trends of what type of activities create energy for you, what type of things are neutral, and what type of things are just draining for you. So an example for me was like get to know you, like Zoom calls, like networking Zoom calls, massively energy draining for me. But in person, one-on-one, actually creating energy for me. I really like getting to sit and talk to people and get to know them and experience them in person. And so at the end of the week, you get this sense of trends, and you can slowly start to reposition and redesign your life to have a higher ratio of green to red, a higher ratio of energy creating to energy draining. You're never going to completely eliminate the energy draining things from your life. You can't just like entirely, maybe 1% of 1% of people have the freedom to be able to do that. Maybe we want to eventually get there. But in the short run, you can do a better job of focusing time in your calendar on those green energy things and slowly trying to eliminate the red. And sometimes there's also an opportunity to turn red into yellow. So like for me, if a Zoom video call is really energy draining, doing that as a phone call on a walk is actually neutral for me. It probably still doesn't create energy, but it's neutral. And so then I can just flip those calls. Now all of a sudden I've eliminated a bunch of red on my calendar and turned it into something that's neutral. At the end of a week, if you have more green than you did in the past, you feel completely different. At the end of a day, you feel much more charged up to take on whatever your personal life stuff is, your relationships, your partner, kids, whatever it is, if you've gone through a day and felt like you gained energy from the things you were doing. So the energy calendar to me is a 100% to do for anyone that hasn't gone through the exercise.
You know what's so interesting is I actually have done something similar, and what I've realized is that the order of things actually changes the color. And I'll give you a weird one. When my fiance says, hey, we need to talk about relationship stuff at the end of a day after I've been through 12 hours of conversations, man, energy draining, completely pulls it out. But if we decide to do it during a walk, in the middle of the day, when I'm present, it actually is incredibly energizing because we can sort through some problems. And then I go through the rest of my day feeling like, you know what, I've accomplished something in my personal life versus in the opposite, man, it is a hard conversation.
There are actually studies that show that dealing with difficult conversations while on a walk makes them much more effective and much easier to deal with. Something about not staring someone, like feeling adversarial, like face to face. And when people walk together, their feet start walking in sync, and there's this actual physical and emotional connection that happens. So there's actually something to that from a science perspective of being able to go and walk with someone when you're having a difficult conversation.
So for you, green, yellow, red, what are the other things that give you green?
Deep focused work on something creative is probably my number one professional energy creating activity. And the other thing I think is important to your point on timing and sequencing of events is there are times of day where you personally, based on your circadian rhythm or how you naturally flow, are most well suited to work on those creative projects. For me, that's first thing in the morning. So that means I get up really, really early because I know that that first 2 hours of my day is when I'm in peak creative flow state. And that's when I need to do that thing. I don't want to be getting emails or texts or jumping on phone calls or doing whatever other things during that window, because it's like sacred. That's when I really need to capitalize and take advantage and write things for my book or newsletter or whatever content I'm trying to create, whatever I'm doing. So for me, that's probably the biggest professional energy creating activity. And then personal, I'd say there's two, and one is like any training that I'm doing at the moment, whatever I'm trying to work at to get better at from a training standpoint. Right now, that's a lot of running. And then time with my son and wife, getting to actually really be present and play with him and kind of experience him learning and how he's observing the world and kind of getting better at the world in whatever way that he's trying to is really, really fun.
It's so interesting that you say the word present.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, one of the biggest learnings that I probably had over the past year or so is my fiance, Rachel, she's an entrepreneur too. She works out of the house. We have our 2 dogs there. And for me, I get a tremendous amount of energy from being around them, and I'm constantly working. And she'd keep on saying to me, Saad, I need you to be present. I was like, I am present. I'm sitting here. She's like, no, you're on your laptop or you're on a call, and we're doing something where there's actually your mind is completely somewhere else. And it took me some time and some maturity to realize, like, no, focus time with no distractions with the person completely changes, I'm going to use your word again, the texture of the experience. Did you go through that transition?
Yes. There is a massive difference between time and energy. Mm-hmm. And it took me a long, long time to figure this out. I would say, oh, we just spent an hour together. Mm-hmm. And the reality is, if you're on your phone, you're texting, responding to emails, or you're on your laptop, or you're just watching a show and you're not really there, that hour of time can mean nothing to the other person because they didn't feel your presence and your connection. On the flip side, 15 minutes of present, focused energy where you were really with the person, really intently listening, asking, following up, really there with them, can go it can last for days. You can really feel connected to someone for a long period of time if you just put in that real focused energy. And so understanding the difference between time and energy in everything that you do. We talk about it in the relationship concept. It's the exact same thing for how you pursue your fitness or the gym or your health and wellness. People are like, oh, I went to the gym for an hour and a half. Yeah, but you were on your phone. You were texting between sets. You were on Instagram between sets. Like, you weren't focused when you were doing the set, whatever it was, or you weren't focused during the run on the things you were trying to do. You're much better off going for 15 minutes and being truly present and focused in that moment. You'll get much better results because energy is where you get leverage. And that's where your time actually gets amplified in a real context in terms of the results.
It's interesting. You talked about your green activity is professionally focused creative work, and I'm guessing no distractions. The conclusion I've come to is that whenever I want to give something focused energy, whether it's personal or professional, it quite literally I need to say, let me carve off all the distractions from around it. And for me, there are these levels, meaning I probably start an activity for the first 10, 15 minutes, maybe you're faster because you can context switch a little bit faster. I have to kind of find a pocket and get rid of all the other externalities that could be potentially entering my head. Maybe I'll do some box breathing beforehand. Then all of a sudden, if I almost stop thinking about it too much, I slip into like a little bit of a flow pattern. It is in that flow or that pocket that the magic happens. And it really is, I've got to force myself half an hour into that place, and all of a sudden there feels like there's a true amount of connection with the material.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that having a power-up sequence for how you get into that is really important. I'm terribly easily distracted, and I have terrible ability to focus, and I'm like pathetic levels of focus if I'm not really locked in on something. And the way that I get to locked in state is that I have the same sequence that I do of events leading up to it. Every single morning I get up, I get in my cold plunge, And I do that, and that locks me in. And then I go get a large black cold brew from Dunkin' Donuts, and then I sit down at my desk. I put on the same kind of headphone sounds that I'm putting on, and I know all those things kind of trigger me to be locked in on the thing. And if I do all those things, I can really get focused because I know it's my power up sequence into focus mode. If I'm missing something in there, like if I, miss my cold plunge, sleep a little late, do different things, I can cobble it together. But it's never quite as good as when I just nail my power up sequence. It's a reason that I don't like traveling as much as I used to. I used to love just being on the road, hotels, whatever. But now I know I don't sleep as well. I can't do my cold plunge routine in the morning. I don't get the same coffee that I really like. I can control the sounds and try to be there in that present state, but it's not quite the same. And so I think that having that consistent, like knowing what that short routine is, it can be like 2 minutes, whatever, that just turns you on into that mode, is really, really powerful. And I think more people should think about it. And by the way, the same goes for a shutdown sequence. At the end of the day, when you need to turn off and you need to be present with the people in your life and you need to flip off work mode, having a sequence of events that allows your mind to be at ease so that you're not just thinking about what you're missing or the work or the urgent thing that's popping up that you're not around for is really, really important.
I'm smiling over here because my power up sequence is very specific. And you know darn well when you start hitting the different levels of your power up sequence, it feels good.
Yeah.
Like it legitimately, you're like, all right, I feel like I'm going on to the next phase and something clicks in, and then you can actually feel your cognition improving. Mine's so specific that the distance I sit from the ground has to be something very specific. So my legs are in a right, it's a 7-inch couch to make sure that my laptop can go on my legs. And so people have made so much fun of me my entire life. And I said, look, it's my thing. It works. I have to make sure it happens. And the other thing too I want to kind of hit on is, interestingly, your power down sequence, at least mine, is actually preparing me for my power up sequence in the morning as well too. Because if it's not laid out, it makes it so much more mental strain in order to get into it. Are you the same way?
Yes. I mean, the easiest thing that anyone can do to level up their life is write down the 3 things that they're going to do the next morning, the night before.
Always.
If you just do that, if you literally just sit down for like 5 minutes at the end of your day and write down 3 things that you're going to accomplish the next day, your days will immediately get, 5x better.
Yep, I believe it.
I mean, I can almost guarantee that because that single thing has allowed me to really break through quite a bit because you hit the ground running. Like there's no friction in what you're starting the next day because you know what the couple most important things are. It also is hugely liberating when you get those couple things done and it's like 7 a.m. and you've gotten your 3 big things done for the day. Because I know, now, the son, wife, things happen, like days go to shit. But if I've gotten my first work block is from 5:30 to 7:30 in the morning because that's when I can focus before my son wakes up, easy for me to tackle, and I know it's quiet, there's nothing coming in. If I've gotten a bunch done, like Monday morning, I write my 2 newsletters for the week during that window. At 7:30 in the morning, I'm done with my one major thing that I really have to get done for the whole week. And the only thing that I really, really have to do on any given week is get those newsletters done. And I'm done with them by 7:30 a.m. on Monday morning. You know how good that feels to just start the week with that winning feeling? And you know how it is, momentum just builds during the course of the week. When you do that to start a week or to start a day, everything rolls off of it and you just get into kind of a winning mentality. So I think that starting the night before with just a tiny bit of prep, your life changes when you realize that 15 minutes of time on Sunday evening is worth 3 hours on Monday morning.
All day long.
So
all day long. I couldn't agree with you more.